Thank you very much. It's great to be here. You know, as I travel across the country and as I talk to groups of all sorts, including many Christian evangelicals, I hear the same thing from them almost consistently everywhere I go. They come up and they say, "Chuck, what we have to do is we have to elect more Christians to public office." And I say to them, and I'll say to you, have you ever known anybody running for public office that wasn't a Christian? Especially every 4 years. They all claim to be Christians. You cannot think of a president that has not claimed to be a Christian, including the current president. They all claim to be a Christian. And I get a lot of people that raise their eyebrows at me when I make the following statement. But I'll say it to you again here today because it is the absolute truth. Ladies and gentlemen, we do not need to elect more Christians to public office. We need to elect men and women who will obey their oath of office to defend, support, and protect the Constitution of the United States of America. I try to remind these folks that whenever someone takes the oath of office, they do not take the oath to be a good Christian. They do not take an oath to be a good Baptist or Lutheran or Presbyterian. They do not take an oath to go to Sunday school. They do not take an oath to teach in Vacation Bible School. Every single one of them, whatever elected office it may be, federal, state, or local, they all swear an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. And that is the only litmus test that we, the people, should use as to who we are going to support for any public office. And I've also had a lot of raised eyebrows among believers when I say to them that I would rather personally vote for an unbeliever who will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States than to vote for a believer who will not preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. Because at the end of the day, it is adherence to the Constitution that is going to preserve the liberties that you and I call dear, including our religious liberties. I would remind you that these people on the left or the right who invoke the power and the assistance of the federal government in order to procure whatever their agenda might happen to be are equally culpable in taking this nation down the road to tyranny and socialism. And I would like to say this as well. I think I'm in a position where I can say this where maybe some others could not. I really do believe that we would not be in the mess we are in today if it wasn't for the pulpits of America, the cowardly pulpits of the United States who will not stand up and teach their people what the principles of liberty are all about. And I realize that there's a lot of people that don't understand this, but it's the truth whether you understand it or not. The principles that are enshrined in our Declaration of Independence, our nation's birth certificate, codified in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, are biblical natural law principles that are given to us by our Creator God. Ladies and gentlemen, our rights do not come from Uncle Sam. Our rights come from our Creator God. I don't know why it's so difficult for so-called conservatives to understand this. It seems that they go to Washington, D.C., just like liberals go to Washington, D.C. They may be coming at it from two directions and two different philosophies and mindsets, but they're going to the same source. And I want to tell you, Washington, D.C. is not our answer. Washington, D.C. is our problem. It is time that we, the people, took back those principles that we all know to be dear and true to our hearts, those things that are enshrined in our soul, and bring them into the public square. And I thank God for Congressman Ron Paul, who has done this his entire political career. and people like him who have been willing to stand in the gap and sound forth trumpet for constitutional government. Let me ask you something. I wrote a column. How many of you read my columns? Just my way of curiosity. All right, several of you do. You can go to my website, chuckbaldwinlive.com, and you can sign up for free. That's chuckbaldwinlive, all one word.com, and sign up for my columns. Oh, by the way, you might be interested in knowing this. How many of you, those of you that go to church and you've heard preachers talk, and how many times have you heard somebody say, well, you know, you got to do everything the government says because Romans 13 says. Well, I want you to know I've got an entire series, 4 sermons on the true meaning of Romans chapter 13, and I've got that on one DVD. You can go to my website and get it for $15. 4 sermons. We go back into history. We go into the founding fathers' quotations. We go into the Scripture, Old and New Testament, and we show unequivocally and categorically that under no time in history has any believer ever been responsible to submit to evil, wicked government. Benjamin Franklin was right when he said that rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. And that is exactly right. It would be wonderful if we could awaken the churches of America like they did in colonial America in the 1750s and 60s. I would remind you that there would have been no Bunker Hill, there would have been no Lexington Green and Concord Bridge, there would have been no Declaration of Independence if the colonial preachers of America had not stood on their pulpits and in their congregations and taught the principles of freedom to their people. And I would remind you too that the Minutemen that stood on Lexington Green on the April 19, 1775, and fired the first shots heard round the world against the British government, they came to do 2 things. They came, number 1, to arrest John Hancock and Sam Adams, and number 2, they came to seize the weapons that were stored in Concord. And it was Pastor Jonas Clark and his congregants at the church at Lexington who met the British at Lexington Green and fired the shots heard round the world. Ladies and gentlemen, we owe our Christian heritage and our legacy here in this country to the brave forebears that fought on the battlefields of this country and bled so that you and I can be free today. And it's a shame, it is a crying disgrace that the preachers and the churches of America today have surrendered and acquiesced the biblical principle of freedom and liberty that was given to us by our Creator God and have become the slaves of the state. It's a disgrace. I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, where in the Constitution, where is it said that the President of the United States can go unilaterally at his own whim and bomb sovereign foreign nations? Where is that in the Constitution? And yet, who are the biggest cheerleaders today for this incessant global war that's going on today? Who are the ones that are flying the flags and cheering on this incessant global war that the warfare state is perpetrating in this world? Sadly, it is the evangelical church. It is Christian pastors. I wrote an article, my article that came out yesterday and went out today. It's being released across the country. And the title of it is, Are Evangelical Christians Warmongers? And the answer to that is, many of them are. Unfortunately, many of them are. They are touting this war doctrine that Bush started with preemptive war against countries that pose no imminent threat to us. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know whether you've thought this through or not, but perpetual war is a tool of the globalists to enslave us. The more global war we have, the more war on terror we have, the more opportunity it gives to the federal government to usurp its authority and steal and strip the freedoms and the liberties of the American people. And yet it seems like they clamor more and more for war, which clamors for more and more security to protect us. I want to tell you something. Freedom is risky business. My dad used to tell me years ago, a bird in a cage may be secure, but it's not free. And I don't know about you, but I intend to die a free man, not as a bird in a cage. And yet, look what happens in these Republican debates. These Republican candidates will get up and tout the war and tout the war and tout the war. And Congressman Paul will get up and give the truth about the ramifications of that and the blowback of that and the results of that. And he's impugned and he's denigrated by many that call themselves conservatives and many that call themselves Christians. I would remind you, ladies and gentlemen, that this country has never been about imperialism. This country has never been about taking democracy to the world, whatever that is, at the point of a gun. And the fact of the matter is, you cannot export democracy at the point of a gun. Freedom and liberty comes from within, not from without. It comes from the heart. Patrick Henry said that before the tyrants can put the chains around our necks, they must first put them around our hearts. And I would beseech all of you here in this audience and those that are watching this video to be sure that you never allow the potential tyrants of 2011 put the chains around your heart. Keep your heart and your mind free. That kind of a man cannot be enslaved by the chains of men. Keep your heart and mind free. Always understand the essential elements of freedom and liberty, and understand that it is that Constitution and the principles contained therein, along with the Declaration and the Bill of Rights, that are used in this country to secure the rights that God has given to us. Governments are not given to us to create rights. As Jefferson said in the Declaration, governments are granted to us. Actually, we, at our behest, form the government that we think best and proper so that our freedoms and our liberties might be secure. That is the purpose of those who take the oath of office, is to protect the rights and the freedoms of we, the people of the United States. And I think you and I know that for the most part, they've not been doing that. For the most part, they've been listening to the special interest groups, whatever that may be, whoever it may be, and they are using unjust war, and listen to me carefully, an immoral, unbiblical economic system to enslave us. The Federal Reserve is a criminal cabal that needs to be dismantled.